let's do a chalk review. Hello and welcome back to the Snooker Shed, and tonight's video is all about chalk. I really can't find a chalk that works for me. I've used all the different chalks that's out there and I'm still to find one that I would put in my pocket time and time again. Maybe there's a chalk out there that I'm not going to look at tonight and you could suggest for me to have a go and see how it works out. But let's go on with tonight's video and let's look at the chalks that I've used since I started playing back in November 2018. So what I've done is I'm going to set up 3 balls. I'm going to play each shot, a stun shot, a screw back and a follow through shot. Then what we'll do is we'll examine the cue ball after each shot and we'll examine the table after each shot. And then we'll just look at the results, how each of the chalks got on. And we're going to start tonight with a famous triangle chalk, the one that we all know. This is about 30 pence a block. I'm sure Amazon was doing like £3 for 6. You know, it's really cheap stuff, extremely common in all the clubs. And I don't know a snooker player that hasn't had this wee yellow beauty in their hands. So let's see how triangle chalk fares on the Snooker Shed's test. Right, so starting the triangle chalk, I'm going to just take any chalk off my tip. So there's nothing on the tip. There you go. And the tip I'm using tonight is a Century G2 tip. And then we'll stick on some of this beautiful triangle chalk. Covers the tip really well. Yeah, pretty happy with the coverage of that tip. No really any spots where I feel that the chalk didn't go into the tip. I've already cleaned the cue ball, hit spotlessly clean, and obviously we've brushed the table. Right, let's crack on with the first set of shots. So, triangle chalk on the stun shot. So here's the point where the cue ball was sitting and we could see this wee area splattery chalk on the cloth. It's pretty standard stuff for triangle. We've all seen this. Moving up the cue ball, so I could see clearly that we've got a nice circular chunk of chalk on the cue ball there. So I quick clean the cue ball, make sure that there's nothing left on that, and a good brush of the table, getting rid of any chalk. So obviously moving on to the next shot, screw back shot. And typical triangle chalk, again, cue ball started here. We've got this splatter, the triangle chalk on the table. That one's not as bad as what we normally see. I might have played my screw shot a wee bit deeper, but you can see that streak gone there. Let's grab the cue ball, bring it back into shot. And then again, you're seeing that chalk residue left on the cue ball. Final one for the triangle, and let's do the topspin shot. Not as much chalk residue on the cloth here. There is a wee bit of splatter there. So not too much. Let's grab the cue ball. But yeah, once again, you can see that blue, that kind of blue chunk on the cue ball there. So, triangle chalk. It is a great chalk, let's be honest. We've all been using it. It's cheap, it's very effective, very little miscues. It does, however, mark the cue ball, and it really leaves a bad residue on the cloth. It leaves the tables in a hell of a mess if you're over chalking with this stuff. Right, let's move on. And the next one we're going to look at is the Triangle Pro, the mark it up one. Okay, jumping in for those that's got a wee bit more pocket money, and we're going to look at Triangle Pro. There's quite a few different chalks in the market that's like Triangle Pro. There's one called Russian Magic, which I've used as well. I'm not going to feature it because it's pretty much the same as this, leaves the same kind of results as this one does. So let's crack on, let's play the stun shot. So sticking this one on my tip, you could see that it covers the tip really well, really well. I'm really impressed by how there is very little spaces left when you put this Pro stuff on. Really good for covering your tip. Let's see what happens when we play the shot. So results for the stun shot on Triangle Pro. Pretty much nothing at all on the table. But let's see if any of the chalk went on the cue ball, and there you go. This is what I've found with the Triangle Pro chalk. It leaves a very big mark on the cue ball. So quick clean of the cue ball. and then move on to the screw shot. So, screw shot with a Triangle Pro chalk, and you can see we've got a kind of darkened streak of chalk there on the table. It isn't much, isn't as much as the Triangle normal chalk, but it's there. Let's grab the cue ball though, and let's have a look. Yep, again, we've got some residue chalk where I've hit the ball. So, topspin shot with a Triangle Pro, and pretty much like its wee brother, the Triangle chalk, nothing on the cloth, nothing to see, which is, it's a bit surprising. You just wonder where all that chalks went to. So let's grab the cue ball and let's have a look at the cue ball, and right away, yep, there it is there again. A similar mark on the cue ball. So there you go, 3 live shots with Triangle Pro chalk. Comes in at around £4-5 a block. I didn't use this much because I thought it really marked the cue ball a lot. But what I did use this for, and I also used the Russian chalk, which you're seeing here, was it does mark the cue ball. And that's really good for learning, because when you think you're striking centre ball, it marks the cue ball. And if you've got Nick Barrow's ball, then you can see if you're hitting centre ball or not. So it was really useful for training purposes, but for actual playing, sorry Pro, wasn't for me. So, next chalks we're going to look at is the new kid on the block, and that's Teom. I've got 3 chalks here for Teom. There's the soft, the version 2 and the Pyro. But during filming and playing, I've found that the version 2 and the soft chalk was identical. The results were always the same. So I'm not going to review both, I'm just going to review one of them. And I'll choose the soft. Then we'll look at the Pyro. Right, so sticking the soft on my tip. And it doesn't cover too well. I'm really lagging this on, but I've cleaned the tip, so I'm putting it on. It's not too bad. But there is patches there where it feels like the chalk's actually not on the tip. Okay, so Taom soft chalk. Nothing. Nothing on the table. And from the stun shot, nothing on the cue ball. Okay, so Taom soft on the screw back, and pretty much as expected, the table's pretty clean. There will be signs on where this chalk goes, because it certainly doesn't go on the table, and it certainly doesn't go on the cue ball. So let's play the topspin shot. And again, same again, nothing on the cue ball and nothing on the table. So, Taom soft chalk, what could I say? No marks on the cue ball, no marks on the cloth. Let's move on to Taom Pyro. Just a wee bit of information on why my Taom Pyro chalk's kind of shaped like this. It fits in to this wee square block. And it's got a wee magnetic clip for when I'm playing games. So if you're interested in purchasing any of these chalks that we're reviewing tonight, go to Q Sports Yorkshire. And Q Sports Yorkshire is run by a lady called Rebecca Kenna, number 4 in the ladies snooker. She's an absolute cracking lady, and she'll give you the best deal. You'll also get the chalk from a reputable dealer. Link is in the description. Right, so let's get some of this Pyro chalk on. Right, so you can see it's kind of same as the soft. It really doesn't cover all the tip. I think this kind of leads me to over chalk, but okay, so table, Taom Pyro chalk, nothing on the table. But on the cue ball, there is a glimmer there. Pyro with the screw back, and again, expected nothing on the cloth. But here on the cue ball is one of the biggest problems I'm finding with the Pyro chalk. Is when I play a deep screw shot, I'm getting a chunk like that on the cue ball. I also get this if I miscue. But clearly that shot that I played wasn't a miscue, it was a good enough screw back. When you try and clean this chalk off, it's almost embedded into the cue ball itself. You're sometimes having to scrape it off with your nails, and it still leaves like almost a crater in there, but it takes a bit of cleaning. Follow through shot with the Taom Pyro, and again, nothing. I've no idea. It must just vanish into space. There's nothing on the cloth. And again, nothing on the cue ball. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that video, and let's summarise what I think of these chalks. So let's look at triangle chalk. It is probably the most common chalk, like I said, everybody's had a shot at it, and it's a good all-rounder. Chalks well, plays well. Disadvantages is that it leaves the table in such a mess, and it marks the cue ball. Moving on to the triangle chalk. Pro. Far too messy for me on the cue ball. Every time you play a shot, you're constantly having to clean the cue ball. Great though, if you're practicing and learning where you're striking the cue ball. Moving on, the Teom, the soft chalk, or the version 2. Very, very good all-rounder. Very little marks on the cue ball, in fact there was none, and very, very little chalk dust on the table. And then the last one reviewed was the Taom Pyro chalk. Still a good chalk, but it leaves big chunks on the cue ball. And for that reason, I'm certainly not going to be using it much. When I'm playing a match and I play a screw shot, I'm finding that I'm having to stop the game to clean the cue ball. So all in all, I'm going to put Taom soft chalk as my number 1. I've hit thousands and thousands of balls and played thousands and thousands of hours of snooker in the last 3 years, and I find this one is probably the best out of them all. The only problem with this chalk is it's fairly expensive, because coming in second is the triangle, and mainly because it's pennies to buy and it's still a decent chalk. But for me, this is the one I'm going to be using more in the future. It isn't perfect. You get a miscue with this, and it'll mark the cue ball when you get a miscue. But out of the results of playing live, this one's top. If there's a chalk that you would like me to have a look at, or you think would be the one for me, then leave the chalk name down in the comments. I'll go buy one and we'll have a look at it here at the Snooker Shed. Once again, thank you very much for watching. Please hit the like button and subscribe. And listen, I'll see you on the table.